what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on Internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
Welcome to another adventure here on Southern Sense Live. I'm on a different camera today because my main computer has no internet, so I'm using my laptop. You're here watching Southern Sense on where the heck are we? Oh God, Facebook, YouTube, X, Blog Talk Radio, and oh God, half a dozen other different places. I don't know. A little confusing getting started this morning or this afternoon because of the internet foul up. Thank you, Hardgrave, for messing up last minute. I'm looking at my router and there's no symbol on the Wi-Fi. But I'm still working here. Oh, Curtis, no sound now on you, Curtis. We have no sound on Curtis. Oh, this is going to be one of those days that nothing can possibly go right. So, Curtis, check your headset. We got no sound on Curtis at this point. There we go. Got you now. Sounds like you may have a loose wire or something on your headset. Just check your connection going into your machine there. Well, everything's a little fouled up, so I'm just trying to get everything so you can see me a little bit better. Let's see if we can help with that. There we go. Anyway, we've got ourselves a couple of great guests. We have Mark Tapscott will be joining us from the Epoch Times, as well as coming back on the show. We haven't had him for a while. He was the former Assistant Attorney General, U.S. Attorney in Northern California. He also wrote a book called Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat. John O'Connor will be joining us on the second half of the show. So hopefully we'll have a great show if we can get some of these snafus cleared up. I'm trying to get some of the light off my camera lens, my eyeglasses, but I can't help it. It is what it is. This is what we got going today, folks. So just bear with us, and we'll try to give you the usual good quality show if at all possible. I think I may have too much light on me. See if I can turn this off. There we go. See if that helps. Nope, that puts me in the dark. That didn't work, guys. All right, this is an experiment waiting to happen. Anyway, it is what it is. Anyway, a lot to talk about. We had the Joe Biden press conference yesterday, along with his meeting with NATO. And boy, is a lot of backlash coming on that. We'll be talking again, Curtis, your headset again. Nothing, no sound. So I'm sorry. We'll be talking about what happened with Joe Biden yesterday. There's a couple of Supreme Court rulings that came in this past week. We'll be talking about those. There's so much to talk about. There was also Karine Jean-Pierre's press conference where she denied anything was wrong with President Biden because there have been reports of a specialist at the White House that dealt in Parkinson's disease. And she was denying that he was being treated for Parkinson's. There's been several people that have been up on TV that are doctors that are specialists in Parkinson's that said, yes, he is. He does have late stage dementia. And his staff is doing a lot to covering it up. So a lot to talk about and a lot to do. And Curtis, do we have you back? No, no sound again, Curtis. You may need to change your headset or something. Oh, you're coming in and out. I can hear you coming in and out a little bit. Something else that we will be talking about also is that you just can't make some of this stuff up. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democrat representative out of New York, or as we know as AOC, has filed articles of impeachment on Wednesday against Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. So, yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. While we're trying to get Curtis with his headset working here, those that watch the show and listen to the show know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to Patrol Officer Jonah Hernandez of Las Cruces PD in New Mexico. His end of watch was Sunday, February 11th of 2024. And this dedication is courtesy of YouTube TV station K Fox 14 in his final farewell.
Central Dispatch 989. Central Dispatch to Las Cruces Police Officer Jonah Hernandez, LCPD 989. Central Dispatch, all units, be advised there is no response from Las Cruces Police Officer 989. Officer Hernandez, thank you for your service. Las Cruces Police 989, you are clear for end of watch.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being with us. I am Robert Olguin.
And I'm Liz DeWicki. So what you just heard there was the last watch call for Officer Jonah Hernandez.
A memorial service with full police honors took place today to honor Officer Hernandez, who was killed in the line of duty almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we have team coverage tonight. We've got Julia Spencer, who was at that burial service in East El Paso. But first, we want to go to Selena Madrid, who was at those services today. She joins us now with more as the borderland came together today to pay respects to Officer Hernandez.
And while today we did feel the love, fill this room, we were also reminded that it's a grim reality out there, that the people who choose to wear the badge, their families are also affected by their desire to answer the call. And that's something that Hernandez's loved ones today said he did with dignity and courage. An American flag waves in the wind as hundreds of law enforcement vehicles, with their lights flashing and their sirens screeching, escort their brother fallen Las Cruces police officer Jonah Hernandez to make their final goodbyes.
I never imagined loving someone as much as I love Jonah.
For it to be the first officer that we've lost in the line of duty is, I'm sorry. Bagpipes really get to us when we hear it, because we know usually what it's related to. It's very difficult, and I'm just here to support any of the other law enforcement officers, the brothers, the sisters, especially the family.
His family by his side today as his casket is escorted into the church with full honors as he courageously made the ultimate sacrifice.
We enjoyed life like we were kids. It was a non-stop adventure with my best friend. Amazing grace.
In an emotional tribute to her husband, Yesenia Hernandez spoke about the man she loved and the father he was to their kids.
He was the perfect example of what a good father should be. And I'm so happy that our boys will never wonder or doubt if he loved them.
As Yesenia and her kids sit alongside hundreds who showed up to remember and honor Hernandez, a flag that was flown over the state capitol in his honor is presented to his son.
Sebastian, congratulations for turning 11 on Sunday. Your dad would have been very proud. Joaquin probably won't remember this moment at all. But I want you to know that you are Hernandez, okay? His flesh and blood is in you.
Through tears and heartache, Unit 989 has signed off.
Let us never forget the impact he has had on each one of us. There is a wound that will remain and should remain because Officer Jonah Hernandez will always be a part of us. Rest in peace, Jonah. You are very loved.
Officer Hernandez, thank you for your service. Las Cruces Police 989, you are clear for end of watch.
Over $120,000 has been raised for Officer Hernandez's family, and there is still ways that you can support him and his loved ones during this very difficult time. I posted all of that information for you on our website at kfoxtv.com if you want to go ahead and click on this story. But after the services today, his body was led to his final resting place for his loved ones to say their final goodbyes. We want to send things on over to our KFOX 14 reporter, Julia Spencer. She was there to give us a recap of how that went. Julia.
It's been an emotionally tough day here in El Paso as the fallen Las Cruces police officer Jonah Hernandez was laid to rest here at Mount Carmel Cemetery. Now, right behind me is the burial site for Officer Hernandez, where you can see a pile of flowers covering the spot where he was laid to rest. Now, hand in hand, loved ones and law enforcement did arrive to pay their respects to the family, but many of them were in tears here today.
We are here to honor and to give our last respects to Officer Jonah Hernandez. For as much as pleased the Almighty God to call home the soul of Officer Jonah Hernandez, we therefore commit his body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
A burial ceremony for fallen Las Cruces officer Jonah Hernandez was held today at Mount Carmel Cemetery. The body of Officer Hernandez and his family was led by a motorcade of first responders and was escorted by a procession of police officers. Hundreds of officers from Las Cruces, El Paso, Chicago, New York, and Arizona all came to pay their respects to Officer Hernandez and his family. A tribute was played by the Honor Guard with the song Amazing Grace. But it was the silence that followed that spoke volumes as the casket, draped in the American flag, made its way from Abundant Church to Mount Carmel Cemetery today. Hernandez's life was also honored during the service with a presentation of arms, a 21-gun salute, and the end of watch call for Officer Hernandez.
Central Dispatch 989. Central Dispatch to Las Cruces Police Officer Jonah Hernandez. LCPD 989. Central Dispatch, all units, be advised, there is no response from Las Cruces Police Officer 989. Officer Hernandez, thank you for your service. Las Cruces Police 989, you are clear for end of watch.
At the end of it all, family, officers, and people who didn't know him personally stood in solidarity for Officer Hernandez's life and service today.
Las Cruces and El Paso, we're really one big community, and today I think that showed.
After the official ceremony, the family of Officer Hernandez stayed and watched as his casket was lowered into the ground. I'm reporting live from the Lower Valley. Julia Spencer, KFOX 14 News at 5.
All right, Julia, thank you for that live report. In another tribute to Officer Hernandez, several digital billboards throughout El Paso displayed a photo of the fallen officer. The billboards along I-10 also included the officer's name and agency. According to Clear Channel, outdoor advertising, the display started at 8:30 this morning and continued until about 10 o'clock.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For the next generation. Let us make room. Let us reimagine welcoming voices with true compassion. Let's craft a world with hopes and dreams, challenges known, those still unseen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For the next generation. Let us be sure when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For the next generation. Let it be said. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For the next generation.
I'm not sure what happened to Annie, but I'm sure she will try to get back on. I'm hoping that you guys can hear me in the chat room. That was a very moving tribute. You know, we used to just broadcast radio and without the visuals, but when you're able to see the video of an officer, a down officer being memorialized, and also seeing, him being buried, it gives another perspective to, the sacrifices that these people make, and how deeply it affects not just the family, but the community. I have, several friends who are police officers, and it's always my fear that some great harm might come to them. But nevertheless, they are true Americans and patriots at heart for going out there to serve and protect their communities. We we should always support our law enforcement officers, and we should, do whatever we can to give them what they need to fight crime, and we should have legislation in place to lessen the harm that they face, in particularly illegals that do not belong here. Don't want to get political with this, but there are some things that can be done to slow down the crime spree, especially in our border states, which right now every state is a border state, but specifically those that are facing Mexico. We need to show the police that we back them, because if we don't, their roles will continue to drop. There's not a lot of incentive for people to go in law enforcement when during their duty they may face charges. When in that moment you have a split second to make a decision. So I'm all for supporting our police. I know there are bad apples in every batch, but we don't need to blame the entire organization over a few bad apples. It's like they say, you don't throw the baby out with the dirty bathwater. But anyway, again, I'm not sure what happened to Andy. I'm not even sure if you guys can hear me broadcasting, but I am. Those of you who watch The President last night, I caught the tail end of it and flashes of it online on the news. It still is apparent to me this guy is not able to lead. Think about this. He was deemed an old man who really doesn't, understand a lot that's going around him. So he cannot be tried or charged or anything like that. Yet, some would say he still could be president. And if you've seen any of the Democrat supporters and pundits on television, a lot of them probably, by the way they express themselves, would support Biden for president if he was full-blown dementia. And I think he's working on his way to being full-blown. But that's how much they hate Trump. And it's just so sad that the left have lied all of these years, and how they, not us, have deceived the country. And in their efforts to push their agenda, they basically are destroying this country. And that is more reason why we have to retire not only Joe Biden, but the Democrats in the House and the Senate. If we don't, we're not going to have a republic. We're not going to have our freedoms, our rights. They will be taken away. So it looks like we have Andy back.
Oh, geez. Talk about a nightmare.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. I just carried
Okay.
on while you took a break there.
Jeez. Sorry, guys. Just for some reason, the internet went down. I tried getting through my cell phone. Right now, I'm using my cell phone as a hotspot. Geez. Anything else could go wrong.
Challenges.
Yeah, challenges. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to finish off the dedication like we normally do with the song by Tiffany to dedicate to them. But I'm glad that we're finally back. Thank you, folks, everyone that's watching over at Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X. Thank you anyway for sticking around and waiting it out. But yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. And Mark Tapscott hopefully will be joining us in about 15 minutes. But he gave me a heads up last night that the Epoch Times was having a huge meeting today at 1:30, and he was hoping it'd be over by the time
The show.
we get on air. So he may be late. So we're just crossing our fingers with that. I'm looking at some of the stuff.
Yeah, I was just telling them about why Joe Biden must go. After that show last night with him calling Trump his vice president and getting Putin wrong. And, it's just, it's so obvious to everyone that this man isn't fit. Mentally
Exactly.
fit.
Well, it was so that they were doing a lot of, what do they call it? Last minute pitches last night after the press conference. And a lot of them were trying to say, well, he didn't do too bad and blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to really gloss it over. If you listen to mainstream media last night, and I'm just trying to get myself a little bit better because I've got the light shining directly on my eyeglasses. I'm sorry, I can't do much about that. Maybe if I switch glasses, see if that will work. A little bit better, not as bad. Anyway, there was a lot of backseat quarterbacking done last night. And even my husband at one point says, well, he didn't do too bad. And then I started pointing out some of the things that I noticed. There was a lot of things where his face went suddenly expressionless. Looked like he had gotten lost in part of his train of thought. His sentences started to trail off on the very end, and he'd switch. He confused Ukraine involvement with Russia, with China, and so on and so forth. Some people say, well, it just meant he was really up on foreign policy. Well, if he was so up on foreign policy, why is it that the rug has been pulled out from underneath him? He was bragging about something around 220 million in his campaign coffers. Not today, not as of this morning. The largest super PAC, the pro-Biden super PAC out there, is called Future Forward. I love the way the progressives always come up with these really stylistic names. Future Forward. Well, they just locked the box on them. They pulled 90 million out and said, we are freezing this. It's not going to any campaign that has Joe Biden in it.
So I imagine that's the way they're going to push him out. Just pull the funding from under.
Yeah, dry the money up would be one big way. You had yesterday George Clooney publicly saying that he should not run. George Stephanopoulos got tagged on the street in Manhattan by TMZ, and Stephanopoulos said, well, I don't think he should run again. A lot of big name people out there are now saying we're not going to back Joe Biden. If you put another horse in the race, then we'll open up our coffers again and we'll back whoever that individual is. Who it will be, that is something that we have been speculating. But at this point, they've thrown all their eggs in the basket behind Joe Biden.
Now, in a legal sense, since you prior law enforcement, when you want to get a hostage situation to come to a safe ending, isn't one of the tactics of law enforcement is to turn off the electricity, the water, and things like that to kind of like wear them down until they give up?
I was never in hostage negotiations like that, but
is that a tactic?
I've been. That would be tactics, and I would imagine that would be some of the things they would do. If they can't do it by sweetening the pot, then they would have to do something else to force the individual out of the home, provided there's no hostages in there, because you don't know what would happen if you do something drastic like that. It could backfire on you just as easily. But if
maybe I watched too many movies.
But anyway. To cut off his source of funding would be a major way in which to force him to back away. I've heard rumors being bandied about that maybe Jill Biden will step in his place, since she basically is de facto president, because Joe is obviously not capable.
But that's not constitutional. That's not constitutional, though.
I don't see why not. There's nothing in the Constitution saying the spouse can't run.
Well, okay, you mean run. Okay, I thought you meant her to take over now.
No. He's got months left on his term. They will probably let him finish his term out and quietly retire into the nearest home with a bottle of pablum and diapers. So,
Now, what about
um,
the women from the African American community who say, if you guys overlook Kamala, we're not supporting the Democrats?
well,
They
Jim
got
Clyburn.
a problem. They have a problem.
Well, Jim Clyburn came out last night, and he publicly stated that he's backing Biden as long as Biden decides he's going to remain in the race. However, should he back out, he said he would back Kamala Harris, Queen Kamala Miller, as I call her. And Jim Clyburn is the one basically who gave him the state of South Carolina in his election. So he's got a lot of pull, a lot of say, and he's got the African American community completely behind him on that in that way. So Jim Clyburn just gave his stamp of approval to Kamala Harris. Now, does that mean that Governor Whitmore would not put her hat in the ring, or Gavin Newsom? Should Joe Biden be voluntarily encouraged to withdraw from the race? Because it looks like that's where it's going to be going if he voluntarily withdraws. If he doesn't, and I heard this also posed, if he makes it into a second term, he will be there for a very short time, and then Kamala Harris would then become de facto president of the United States.
Yeah, I heard that too. Cognitively, I don't even think he's going to make it to September.
Now,
dementia, it progresses fast towards the end. I mean,
exactly. And the more you place an individual under stress, the more you will cause it to progress even faster.
right.
And I'm sure trotting him out for the debate, trotting him out for public appearances, just adds to that stress. And then he did a full hour in that press conference. And you can tell, especially towards the end, where his train of thoughts were faltering. And he was having a hard time in completing some sentences. He'd drift off and say, oh, well, and then turn on to another subject. I thought it was a little obvious he had an earpiece in, because when he did do certain things like that, someone must have been in there saying, change the subject, do this, do that. He had some problems where he was calling members of the press, where he repeated one name, and obviously someone said something in his ear, because then he quickly then turned around and called another individual on that list. So I think there was definitely someone back there coaching, because you didn't see Joe Biden in front. Joe Biden was not in front. Who sat in the front row? Think about that. Karine Jean-Pierre and 3 other members of her press corps, of her White House press, the spokespeople. You don't do that. The front row is usually reserved for special guests and dignitaries. Yes, Anthony Blinken was up there, but those 4 front center seats was Karine Jean-Pierre and her colleagues.
Well, when he made that gaffe by saying Putin, you can almost sense that somebody in his earpiece told him, no, not Putin.
That was instantaneous turnaround.
Yeah.
And we know from seeing Joe Biden's past public experiences, that's not how he physically reacts. So someone snapped to in his ear. And one of the things I noticed, and I don't know if anyone in the press picked up on that, but when he was on the stage with those other world leaders, matter of fact, the chairman of that commission, or whatever you want to call it, the summit, was basically directing Joe Biden. He was never too far away from Joe Biden at all times, directing him where to sit, directing him where to walk, pointing him over certain directions. And I looked at the other world leaders. Some of them were snickering, looking at Joe Biden and snickering. Is this how we want to present the United States as a weakened, doddering old fool, or as a nation of strength. Now, Joe Biden talked about being a nation of strength last night, but that's not what he's projecting on the public stage.
No, he
And
said
the Kremlin automatically made a public statement immediately.
He said he was the best man for the job, yet he had to be led off stage by a former president, Obama, a couple of weeks ago. It was just so obvious. You know, Obama put on airs as though they were having a conversation, but Joe was just looking forward and walking like a robot while being escorted off the stage by Obama. I mean, it's just so obvious, and I can't see how people still support this man being in office, but they do because they hate Trump so much.
And exactly. And that's where we're seeing those that continue to support Joe Biden are those that hate Trump that much that they would put this man through more misery. It's obvious he's deteriorating before our eyes. And it's no longer year to year or month to month. It's now week to week, coming down to day by day. And I don't know how much more his physical and mental capacities will be able to tolerate this much of a strain on him.
Well, we'll know by the next debate if he's still in the running.
If there is a next debate. If there is a next debate. And that's the big question. But as I said, the biggest blow came where Future Forward, the pro-Biden super PAC, they just froze the assets. They said, no, the roughly 90 million is no longer available as long as Joe Biden stays in the race. Here's what else that they are pointing out. And this is, believe it or not, from the liberal New York Times. I pulled this article up. So those listening do know that I do look at other sources of news besides Fox or Newsmax. I do look at CNN and MSNBC. God, I'm going to barf every time I say that. And I go into the New York Times as well as Politico, and I want to see what's coming up on the other side. Because for me, it's a bellwether curve onto what the public is actually moving towards. So if the New York Times has publicly had an editorial right after the debate stating that Joe Biden should withdraw from the race, and now they're coming forward with this article, they write that in Michigan, today, Joe Biden was heading to Detroit, which is a critical battleground state. Matter of fact, Trump tomorrow will be in Pennsylvania. And he's going to focus his attacks on what's called Project 2025. And Curtis, if you remember, a couple of months back, we had Hans von Spakovsky on from the Heritage Foundation. And he brought up, are you aware of the Project 2025? And I was. The liberals are now using that as a war cry to rally the troops, and putting this into the Biden campaign, saying that if you elect Trump, Project 2025 is going to be the result of what you're doing. And we have the expert in this specific topic with us today. Welcome back onto our platform, Mark Tapscott. And Mark, if I look a little bit differently, I have no internet. So I had to use my phone as a Wi-Fi and my laptop. So if things look a little strange.
Hey, Mark.
I think the Democrats knew we were going to be talking about Joe Biden's performance last night. So they said, no, we can't let her do that. So we got to crash the internet on her just as the show was starting.
Curtis looks pretty good, but I'm not so sure about you, Annie.
I don't think you can get anything whiter than me
this week. So I'm kind of.
Oh, you look so cute in pink.
Oh, well, I thought you'd like that.
This is our Miami Vice colors. Miami Vice.
Well, we're all in pastels. Anyway, we were talking about Joe Biden's performance last night in the news conference. And I was making some observations I had where he was there with the members of NATO in that summit. And he didn't look too great in the summit to begin with. And there was a lot of faults that they had in his press conference. We'll not even talk about him calling Kamala Harris Vice President Trump.
I don't know who should be
And
more
then Trump
insulted.
is she. But I was saying that even the New York Times has gone full bore out now. They did it directly after the debate, calling for his stepping out of the race in an op-ed piece. But now in a regular piece, they're pointing out that Future Forward PAC has frozen the somewhat around $90 million in the coffers for Joe Biden's campaign. This is as long as he's running, the money's not available for any Democratic presidential candidate.
Yeah. That's in my view, that's probably an indication of the decisive consideration, irrespective of what you think about Joe Biden personally, or about his policies, or about, his family business, whatever you think about that stuff. The bottom line in any campaign is you don't have a campaign if you don't have money. And, these Democratic donors, they read George Clooney in the New York Times a couple of days ago, and they said, why am I sending more money to this cause? I'm not going to do it anymore. And they're worried even more about what's going to happen to down ballot Democrats in congressional races. So, this is a disaster all over for Biden.
And they brought it on themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't blame us.
The conference yesterday really demonstrated that.
Yeah, can't blame us.
Well, it's tossing this and the forward momentum that President Trump has in his campaign, and he's aiming for those swing states. And tomorrow he'll be in Pennsylvania, and he's going to be going after that and pushing it to make sure that Michigan's in play. Because if you looked at, I saw some of the shots from the floor of the convention that opens on Monday, the Republican convention opening on Monday, that some of those swing states delegates are front and center towards the front of the stage, like Michigan. If you looked at some of them, they're deliberately putting some of those swing states up in front to help bring that support and swing them over, which I found an interesting move. Matter of fact, I do have to give a shout out to a friend of mine. She's the number one delegate number one from Colorado. She'll be there on Monday, and she will be broadcasting Moms for America, Moms Across America, the podcast I do on Wednesdays. She'll be broadcasting from the convention floor. So hi, Vicki. Anyway, an article you wrote up recently, just a couple of days ago, about who's going to succeed Mitch McConnell,
right,
as Senate Majority Leader.
Minority Leader.
Yeah, Minority Leader now. And you threw out a couple of interesting names, such as John Thune and John Cornyn. And I found it interesting. I have the funny feeling that John Cornyn is the more acceptable of the two. From what I was reading, is that what you seem to sense?
That's the basic thrust of the story. Senator Thune is from South Dakota. He's McConnell's closest deputy. And Senator Cornyn is from Texas, which, as you can tell from my accent, I have a certain predilection for. He is also the third candidate in the field is Senator Rick Scott from Florida, who had challenged McConnell 2 years ago and was beaten pretty badly. I think he got 13 votes out of a Republican conference of 49. But he's making another run at it. And then there's a fourth possible candidate, depending on what happens on election day. Senator Steve Daines from Montana. Is he from Montana? I can never remember where Steve Daines is.
Now you got me going back to my notes. Here we go.
One of those states where nobody lives. He could run if the Republicans have a big night on Senate races, if they pick up 4 additional seats or more, then the odds are pretty good then that Daines, who is the chairman of the Senate Congressional Campaign Committee, Republican Campaign Committee, he will be sitting in a catbird seat. He can say, "Look what I did," to get us the majority back, and that would give him pretty good campaign. So we'll see.
Well, I wasn't really impressed with Rick Scott because I saw him when we were in DC, and he was kind of like dismissive of what we were there for. I mean, as lobbyists, that one time that I was doing it, he seemed like, "Well, you don't understand how things work" type of attitude. And here we had people from Fair USA and Heritage with us, and if they didn't know how things worked in the Senate, then who does?
Yeah.
And I just was not impressed with him. And then I just turned around when we walked away. I says, "Did anyone get the same impression that I did, that he was rather dismissive and disdainful of us?" And I think maybe that's what his colleagues also sense about him. And maybe that's why he's not as popular as Cornyn or Thune.
It's interesting that you say that, Annie, because I haven't heard that. And I've been talking to a lot of folks in the Senate. But of course, one senator talking about another one, especially in their own party, they're very reluctant to be critical of each other because the Senate culture of, it's a gentleman's club, the world's greatest debate society. But that may make some sense because Scott does have kind of a bit of a formal feeling to the way he presents himself. I happen to think just strictly from looking at his proposals that he says he would adopt if he was elected chairman, limiting, having a term limit, for example, for the Senate party's leader, party leader. Harry Reid was the Democrats' leader for 15 years.
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
Forever.
Because the Democrats don't have a term limit. Absolutely. Yep. Mitch McConnell, he's, the longest serving party leader in the Senate. Rick Scott says, we ought to have a term limit on that so that we can bring along the young talent that the Republicans have elected in the Senate in recent years. There's one guy, for example, Ted Budd from North Carolina, who I think is, from what I've seen, he has tremendous legislative skills. He's a very good speaker. He happens to come from among other things, he received a degree from the Dallas Theological Seminary. He's a very faithful evangelical Christian. And I think he could be a real power in the Senate. But if you have the same guy and his buddies running the conference for year after year after year after year, guys like Ted Budd finally say, "Well, I got other things to do." And the Senate and Republicans and the country lose the benefit of their skills and their talent and the contributions that they could make. So a term limit makes sense.
The term limit does make sense because I believe Cornyn, you wrote, also supports the term limits also.
Yeah, and that's the reason he probably is in the best position of the four, because he was McConnell's deputy for a couple of years before Thune was. He is conservative. He comes from Texas. I mean, you have to be conservative to come from Texas to get elected. And he's a member of the Senate Republican Steering Committee, which is the nucleus of the conservative Republicans in the Senate. So he's got links both ways, and that gives him some real leverage. He probably should be favored.
Yeah, and Daines is from Montana. I did find it. It was on your front page. It is Montana. But you pointed out one of the things that's unique about Daines is that he's really good buddies with Donald Trump Jr.
Yes.
as well as hunting buddy. So if you want someone working with the hopefully Senate Majority Leader come November, he would be someone to be working very closely with Cornyn, maybe as his deputy.
You mean with Daines? Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure if Daines does run, probably the third word out of his mouth will be, and you know, I'm good buddies with the president's oldest son, and boy, we can really get things done. So we'll see.
Yeah, you know, there was a whole big flack leading up to this press conference, and maybe this is what caused it to happen, where Karine Jean-Pierre went before with a press conference denying that the doctor that showed up at the White House was seeing Biden for Parkinson's.
Right.
And after that press conference, you saw all the media networks pulling out doctor after doctor who were specialists in neurological diseases. Specifically, I was looking at one from, I think it might have been ABC or NBC, that had a Parkinson doctor on who happened to have been a Democrat.
Yeah,
and he said,
yeah.
if you did not diagnose him with Parkinson and you were in my class, you'd fail.
You'd fail, yeah.
And I'm saying, if that does not just put the knife in the back of Biden, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
And
I
then
read of another Parkinson's specialist who is a Democrat who said something to the effect of, I could diagnose him as a Parkinson's patient from across the football field. You know, the signs are there, and you know, he is, whatever you think about his policies or, you know, him personally, he's the president of the United States. He's the most powerful guy in the country, and he's got that finger near the red button. And, you know, the American people have a right to know the health of their chief executive, their commander in chief. That's not a partisan question to be asking. You know, President Biden, are you having trouble remembering what you need to remember, you know?
You know, the question also now is the culpability of the staff as well as the vice president in keeping this from the public. Now, the fact that he is this ill, is that now an impeachable offense against Kamala Harris for hiding this from the public, that we have such a weak leadership?
Yeah, I doubt that it would. You know, there's probably a lawyer someplace in this country that could make that case. I don't think it would go very far. But here's the point, that the more important point that you're making there, Annie. Not only Vice President Harris, but the 4 senior aides just under Jeff Kines, the chief of staff. There are 4 of those senior aides who apparently, according to the New York Times, and we all know the New York Times is always accurate, those aides, their main job has been to shield Biden from the public and making sure that when he is in public, it's brief, scripted, and ended as quickly as possible. Those folks are not elected, and if they have been concealing something that is of such relevance to the fitness of office issue, that is something serious that needs to be discussed in the public. And Congressman Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, has subpoenaed them, I think 3 of the 4.
Yeah.
I
found it strangely odd, but I found it strangely odd at that press conference that Karine Jean-Pierre and 3 of her colleagues were front and center. Normally, those seats are set aside for important members or dignitaries or guests, but he had his press secretary and 3 colleagues front and center, as if they were holding up cue cards. All right, say next question. You know, I'm wondering, the positioning of it just, the optics did not look all that great.
Well, I'll tell you, they promoted the big boy news conference that this was going to be Joe Biden.
Big boy. I love that one. Big boy.
Yeah. Joe Biden was going to remove all doubt. He was going to take any question that any reporter wanted to ask him, and he would demonstrate that, he's still got it and he can serve another term. But in fact, what they did, they claimed that there were no pre-screened questions, but there were pre-screened questioners, and if you weren't on that list, you didn't get to ask a question. And I can guarantee you, when Biden held up his list and said, "No, I've got to call on these people for questions," there were notes about what each one of them was very likely to ask. So this was just another stage-managed, fraudulent event, in my view. And the fact that none of the White House press corps folks stood up and said, wait a minute, we want to ask some more questions, and started asking the questions. They didn't protest it. They just sat there and let it happen. That's not good.
What I find amusing is that Biden even said, they gave me a list. They gave me, he's not in charge. It's almost like a couple of years ago when he said, well, they won't let me. It's like, who won't let you? You're the president.
Yeah.
But going back to Kamala, I'm not defending this woman in no way, but what about the cabinet members? My understanding is he hasn't had a meeting with his cabinet since last October. Why aren't they speaking up? Yeah, I mean, that's crazy with all the things that's going on in the world.
Yeah, well, Chuck Todd
about to explode, and he doesn't meet with his cabinet.
Yeah, Chuck Todd, the host of NBC's Meet the Press, disclosed, I think yesterday, that 2 years ago he was asked by a senior Biden cabinet secretary if he thought, Biden should run again, and that cabinet secretary said he can't run again, and this was a discussion about Biden's cognitive decline 2 years ago. Chuck Todd knew that 2 years ago and didn't say anything.
They all knew, if you want to ask me.
Well, I tell you, the fact that Chuck Todd did not act on that as a clear, important news story, that says he didn't want the rest of us to know about it, and that makes him part of the cover-up.
Cover-up mode, yeah. But they can't cover the man up anymore. It's so evident if you look at the Juneteenth video where the blacks are, I believe, in church and they moving, and he's like froze.
Well,
I mean, you can't explain that,
Curtis.
He looked like a robot that just been turned to stone.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those white boys that can't dance. I gotta sympathize with him on that one.
He wasn't moving or nothing.
Nothing. He was frozen. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about airhead bubbleheads. AOC on Wednesday filed articles of impeachment against Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. Not likely to go anywhere.
No.
But what are you hearing on the grapevine?
Well, it's a political grandstand. We're in one of those periods. It may last 6 weeks, it may last 6 days, but the left goes through these successive periods where they're pushing a particular cause. And you've seen lots of criticism of Thomas and Alito, especially since the Dobbs decision, and especially more recently since the Chevron decision, which really is going to be a problem for the bureaucracy, which is why the left is so upset about it. So, and you've got the so-called ethics questions that are involved with Justice Thomas. They're simply using this and this kind of political maneuver to put pressure, they think, on the justices to not, in the case of Alito and Thomas, who are conservatives, to not rule in, according to their knowledge and their views. It won't work, but that's what the left does.
And I was also wondering if this was some kind of like change the narrative moment, from Biden to the justices. If it is, it's not going to work.
Yeah, no, it won't, because Justice Alito, I don't know if I'm not a lawyer, but I've done some reporting on the Supreme Court, and I've read a number of Alito's opinions. And in my view, he is a brilliant constitutional scholar. And so is Clarence Thomas. The fact that Clarence Thomas doesn't get the credit that he deserves for his work on the Supreme Court, he's an historic figure, and I'm pretty confident that when he has passed, and historians who don't have the prejudices that the present era have, they will look on him much, much more
favorably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, are you heading to the convention at all? Are you covering the Republican convention at all?
No, I am not, and thank God. I've gone to all the political conventions I want to go to. We have some younger people, probably smarter than me, who are going to be covering it there.
Well, that's good.
Well, that's good. Take an opportunity.
The last time the Republicans did a platform was in 2016, because they met virtually in 2020. So there was no platform committee.
Right.
Now there's a bit of a ruckus that got kicked up on this current platform, because the old platform was 66 pages. They cut out 50 pages.
Yep.
It is now down to 16 pages. And I printed it out. I've got it here. And I liked what I was reading in it. But when I came to the part where normally we take a very strong pro-life stance, it was written in such a manner that it seemed like you're kind of like giving some people some leeway when it comes to pro-life issues on the Republican trail. So if you are someone that is having a lot of pro-choice in your constituency, you have a little leeway in which to move around. Say, well, the platform doesn't say.
Right.
And they did the same thing with marriage, where they state they support the sanctity of marriage, but they took out saying marriage was between one man and one woman.
Yep.
Again, they gave them leeway on the campaign trail. And my friend that I said is heading over there, she didn't like that having been taken out. And the other thing they normally did was, when the committee met, they get the notes and everything on Monday. Tuesday, they have the discussions. Wednesday, they vote in the new platform. Well, in this case, what they did was, on Monday morning, they were given the platform. And who was this? It seems that it was written by the Trump campaign, by Donald Trump. I'm looking to see the name of the. Bear with me. Who the person that was hosting this? A female.
Well, I know he's trying to reach out to the undecided.
Marsha Blackburn. That's who I was looking for. The name. Marsha Blackburn was the co-chair of this. So she brought it out and she put it to a vote immediately. Yeah. She said, "This is the platform. Read it. We're going to vote on it now." And it passed 84 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
So when I pointed this out to my friend, I said, I can understand you're being upset with this, but I also understand what they did and why they did it. And I said, think of it as putting your foot in the door. So at least we've got the platform out there. You know what should be in there. I know what should be in there. But let's get the foot in the door. Let's get more members elected to the House and the Senate and reclaim the White House. Then we can rip the door wide open and say, put it back on the platform.
Yeah.
Am I looking at this correctly?
No, I think you're right on target, Annie. The thing about the abortion issue within the pro-life issue in the Republican perspective is the Dobbs decision fundamentally changed the context of the debate. Excuse me. We went from Roe v. Wade, which was effectively a national law, to Dobbs. This is a state level decision. And we all know that states like New York and California and Illinois are going to let women have abortions, with no limits, whatever. Other states, Texas, Oklahoma,
South Carolina,
Carolina, right, are going to have pretty stringent, Florida, stringent requirements and restrictions on it. So that's now a given, and that angers the absolute pro-choice people because they don't have pro-choice nationwide. It angers a lot of folks on the pro-life side because there still are going to be thousands and thousands, maybe millions of unborn babies that are going to be aborted in America. And that's horrifying to millions of Americans, myself included. I'm sure both of you guys. But the political context, because of Dobbs, changed everything. And, as long as Dobbs is the law of the land, that means there are going to be both kinds of states, and people might as well get used to it.
Well, in a lot of ways, I agree. It should be going back to the states' issues, which is what our founders envisioned. But they never envisioned an issue like abortion or marriage being a national issue. It was never intended to be.
No,
they never were. There's the enumerated powers in the Constitution, and that's that. And we're finding with this Supreme Court, they're starting to bring us back to those enumerated powers with the Chevron decision and with several other decisions. Recently, they had the decision dealing with homelessness.
Yep.
Now, why is that? That's a big one. Why is that a federal issue when it is a local issue? You're homeless on a local street. You're not homeless nationwide.
Yep.
Again, they're bringing these issues back to the states, which again is irritating some people, but I think it's allowing people also to reclaim their towns and cities. You have a public park where you have children playing. You don't want them out there playing where there's needles and methamphetamines and fentanyl hanging around. You want to have a safe area to which to publicly gather. Yep. We have charities and other things. We can deal with homelessness through that, through a local government and charity cooperation, or even a local business and government cooperation. There's ways to handle it locally. And again, I think they're coming back to what the founders really, truly intended. And yet I can also understand the anger where one life lost is one life too many. And we also recognize that. But you can't be there to save everyone. But we can do the best we can. If we put it in the platform, it doesn't mean it has to go into a federal legislation. We can then say it's our national platform. Let's bring it and use it here nationally.
Yeah.
That's my preaching for today.
Well, you timed it perfectly because I've got to go.
Your wife wants you to go to the beach with her, so you better hurry on
get back over there. Yeah, absolutely. This has been a good discussion.
Well, tell her we say thank you for lending us your time, and we enjoy it. And people can find you at the Epoch Times, theepochtimes.com. Well, enjoy your vacation.
Curtis.
All right, Mark.
See you guys next time.
All right.
Take care. Check out Mark Tapscott at the Epoch Time. All right, we're waiting for our next guest to call in. So far, so good. We're not having any more problems. And I do apologize for those that started in early on the show, that my internet crashed just as we started the show. So if we seem a little discombobulated, that's why. My notes are now scattered all over the place.
Wow. Getting back to term limits, I think it's just as important in the House that we have term limits. Our good friend Ted Yoho, he pushed for that. And he kept his campaign promise to term out. But unfortunately, he couldn't convince the others to take that platform to another level, where we don't have people, being in Congress for 30, 40 years, like I would say like Ted Kennedy, the lion of the whatever they called him.
Well, the Convention of States is getting more and more momentum. And I'm trying to remember who I saw speaking on TV, on the news, who was wearing a Convention of States T-shirt. And I thought it was quite apropos. And I'm wondering if that was Mike Pence or someone else really high up there. And I thought, it was odd, but yet it makes sense that, of all things, Pence would be someone pushing for the Convention of States. People can try to say I'll self-term limit, but then again, you will have people that get in there like Nancy Pelosi, Freudian slip deliberately, that will just be there forever. Barbara Boxer, another one, Harry Reid. And these are people that go in and are
Mitch
modest,
McConnell.
but when they leave, they have amassed tremendous wealth.
Oh yeah.
And that's not the purpose of joining the Senate or the House. It's to serve the people, serve your constituency, and to try to make this a better nation, not for self-gratification.
I mean, look at Al Gore.
Self-promotion or wealth management. I mean, it's there to help us.
I think Al Gore's worth well over. I think Al Gore's worth well over $200 million. How's that possible when all he did was serve in government most of his life, just like the Clintons?
No, I don't know.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but Annie, again, is having technical issues. She froze up on me a couple of times. I may even sound like I was talking over her, but from my perspective, she was froze up on my screen. So I didn't want just silence. But going back to this issue with Congress and term limits, I think it's always a good idea to bring in fresh, new minds and kind of like push some of these people who's made, it their lifetime venture to stay in government. I mean, how rich can you get or want to get rich? I mean, you had influence. I think it's the power that keeps them there.
Well, for some people, the more money they make, the more they want to stay. So we're back. Just hang in there, guys. I can't help it. For some reason, my internet is going up and down, and I'm relying on the hotspot on my cell phone right now. That went out. So whatever's going on, we've got some thunderstorms coming in the area, and I'm wondering if that's affecting what's going on here.
It's possible, but it was freezing you out at times too on the video.
Yeah.
So I may seem like I was talking over you, but I didn't want it to be silence while you were frozen, like Joe Biden.
Oh, geez. But we're waiting for our next guest to call in, if he can call in. And I'm afraid to try to even text his agent to find out whether or not he's able to get through, because I'm afraid it'll knock me off the internet again if I try to use a text. So just bear with us, folks. We're just going to keep on going on, keep on keeping on. Something happened just 2 days ago. The House passed a bill requiring proof of citizenship for voting in federal elections. It's about time. It is about time, because nowhere, it's in the regulations for voting, but nowhere is there actual legislation that states that you must be an American citizen to register to vote. And when they came out with these new motor laws, that when you go in to register your vehicle or to get your driver's license or renew your driver's license, you are asked if you want to register to vote. In many cases, you're automatically registered to vote. Well, nowhere do they ask if you're an American citizen. It's on the application, but heck, if you lie on the application, who checks it? Does anyone really check these things? I doubt it. I sincerely doubt that. So hence, we've had a lot of people registering to vote that were not eligible to vote. And
Now,
this I found rather interesting because they interviewed some illegal aliens waiting to come into the United States, asking them why. I don't have the exact article in front of me. I'm doing this off the top of my head. What was their intent on coming? Because now there's the president of Panama saying he's going to close the Darien Gap because of the agreement he made with the Biden administration to slow down the illegal immigration. And the best thing to do is to close the Darien Gap to start with. At that point, now it's going to be up to us to send the proper personnel to the border to secure the border, to not be a welcoming mat service, to repel illegal invasion, as I call it. And it is an invasion. And they were asking them, why are you coming to the United States? And one guy says, well, I want to come so I can vote. But you have to be an American citizen. No, my cousin made it over there, and he told me that you can vote as soon as you make it over here. You can register to vote. How many millions have we allowed into the United States illegally? And our Border Patrol are no longer there patrolling the border. They're being there. They're the U.S. Welcome Service. Matter of fact, some clever Border Patrol agent made these counterfeit challenge coins. And for those who don't know what a challenge coin is that if you're a first responder or a member of the military service, each time you hit a certain milestone in your career, you get a challenge coin. And it's to recognize your achievements, whether it's Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Air Force, first responder, law enforcement, fire department, emergency response. We all have these coins. Well, the Border Patrol agent changed his to U.S. Welcome Patrol. Instead of U.S. Border Patrol's U.S. Welcome Patrol. And they're hot. They're really hot. It seems a lot of agents carry these challenge coins now as a sign of protest, an open sign of protest, but a quiet sign of protest. So our Border Patrol agents are being taxed beyond belief by this administration. So guys and gals, I would give them hats off to them for the hard work they're doing, but I'd like to see them getting back to their original mission of protecting our nation from invasion. And they're saying that coming Darien Gap was 1,000 individuals a day last week, just as the announcement was being made, 1,000 a day. That's 7,000 a week. And out of that 1,000 a day, 700 were military-aged men of Chinese national descent. Think about that. Think about that.
Now, my question is this. How long are the Democrats in the Senate going to be able to stall this bill? Because, they're not going to pass it. It'll go from the House to the Senate.
The administration will not sign it. But it can be put back up again by the House and forwarded again to the Senate in a new Senate. If the Senate has a majority Republican, it has a good chance of passing.
Big if. But we can also use that against them in the campaign. We came up with a bill requiring that any non-citizen not be able to vote. But those guys on the other side didn't want that. They wanted anybody, non-citizens included, to vote. And I think that's a strong campaign point.
Now, in some municipalities, and I know New York specifically, a couple of towns upstate, allowed individuals to vote in local elections, even if they weren't a citizen of the United States, that you're a resident of that municipality. So they allowed people to vote. But what prevents that individual, when they're given the ballot, from not going up ballot and voting in state and federal elections? What safeguards do they have so that that non-citizen does not vote in state and local and federal elections?
Well, you're not going to have those safeguards, and especially Democratic-controlled districts. They're going to be urging them to vote on a national level.
Mm-hmm.
it benefits them to do so.
Well, under this bill that we passed, which is what got our conversation down to this, under the bill, acceptable forms of proof of citizenship include a passport, a birth certificate, a government-issued photo ID showing the person was born in the United States, and a military ID showing the same. So now, with these motor voter laws, a lot of state IDs do not show your origin of birth, your place of birth. They're saying that that's not going to be good enough. It has to show your place of birth here in the United States, including military ID, which I think is a good safeguard, which will counteract these motor voter laws that are allowing illegal aliens to register to vote in state and federal elections.
Well, I hope that we can retain the House, regain the Senate, and put Trump back in the White House. And hopefully our legislators will support this president and not fight him like they used to under Paul Ryan and all the others.
Mm-hmm. Now, I had mentioned that the left is going, this is a little bit of change of the subject, left was going after a new way to attack Trump by using the Project 2025 that was put together by the Heritage Foundation. And it was with the intent to assist Trump in a second term. And on this one, there's a little handout that I was able to download from Heritage Foundation that you can get by going to heritage.org yourself and download it. And it lists the top 5 reasons why the left hates this Project 2025 and why they're going to use that to try to fight against Trump coming in a second term. And reason number 1, and this one is, it will restore the American family. And in here are the top 5 reasons and what they would do. They would eliminate the marriage penalties in federal welfare programs and the tax code. Now, if you're married and you're getting social services, you're going to get less services than if you were a single mom and with a bunch of babies from different daddies. What they're doing is saying, we're going to change the welfare system. That if you're a single mom with multiple daddies, I'm sorry, you're getting one type of benefit, that's it. If you're married to this individual, we're not going to reduce your benefits. We're going to treat you like a complete family, and you'll be better off. The same thing with the tax code. You're not going to have a marriage penalty. They're also going to instill work requirements for food stamps. It should be welfare to work. It shouldn't be just food stamps. It should be welfare to work as well as food stamps. You have to do some sort of a work if you want to be on the government dole. Obviously, if you're capable of working. I mean, if you're disabled, that's a whole different category. But if you're capable of working, if you're of a working age, you should. And whether or not you be the elevator man in what do you call it? Like, we don't even have that anymore. When you get in the elevator, you'd have the usher in the elevator. What for, please? No, you don't have that. But even if you did something like that, or you were a gopher in a government office, you should be doing something. You should not be getting money from the government for free. They're also promoting the parents' rights and school choice. Parents should never have had their rights taken away in taking care of their children. Only a parent knows what's best for that child, not the school, not the person across the street. And it shouldn't be a school counselor that's telling your child that they're in the wrong gender. So let's bring it back to the parent. And they shouldn't be doing these surgeries and giving hormone therapies to underage children without the parent's consent. So give the care of the child back to the parent, back to the household. They also want to remove critical race theory and gender ideology from the curriculum in every public school in the country. And the way it actually reads is any other liberal agenda along these lines. So bringing it back to the basic ABCs, should be teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, teaching them skills that they can go out there in the workforce, technical skills. Like they used to have shop for guys and home ec, things like that. But skills that when they leave high school, they are able to go out there and work in society and get a good paying job. Enact the most robust protections for the unborn. And they will also, while deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life. There was a point in time in New York, there was legislation we fought for, that if a woman who was pregnant was the victim of a crime, and that crime caused injury or death to the unborn child, that unborn child was treated as a separate individual. Since then, New York State has changed their abortion laws to negate that law. It should go back to that. That unborn child is another separate human being. Yes, it's connected by an umbilical cord to the woman only until the child is viable outside. But we also know by today's science that more and more premature babies are being born at a younger time and are surviving outside of the uterus. So when do we say that you're viable? My faith tells me from conception. And I would like to see that child protected from conception. Your faith may tell you something else. I'm not going to impose my faith on you, but we should do everything we can to help protect that innocent preborn child. The second thing they want to do is to dismantle the deep state. And we've seen the Supreme Court start to do that with the Chevron ruling and with some of the other rulings that have been coming on. They're looking to fire these supposedly unfireable bureaucrats. Think about what state our nation would be in if the President of the United States had been able to fire Anthony Fauci. Think about how much faster we would have recovered from COVID. How many other bureaucrats that are out there in government that shouldn't be there any longer? I mean, you give them a pen and a pencil and put them in a back room, and all of a sudden they have the power of God over the American citizen. Get rid of them. They want to also close wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices. Department of Education. Oh, how about the IRS? That's just wishing, isn't that, Curtis?
Yeah. The way I look at it, if they're going to attack us on 2025, our side should educate the American people about Agenda 21 and Agenda 30.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing they want to do in dismantling the deep state is eliminate the woke, keep them straight, woke propaganda at every level of government. I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, government is there to protect the people and to administer to the state. It's not there to spread ideology of either the left or the right. You're there to get a simple job done, get it done, and just leave the propaganda behind. Let the mainstream media, let the different political parties push their propaganda. It's not the job of government to take sides. That's it. Restoring the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state. That would be nice if government would listen to we, the people. And that's the purpose of the Constitution, so that government can listen to we, the people. So bringing back the power of the United States to we, the people, is a good thing. And returning governing power to Congress and the president instead of unelected bureaucrats. I mean, how many times have we heard of people running afoul of some regulatory agency because some bureaucrat pushing a pen in a back room decided, oh my goodness, that pond in your backyard is no longer your personal property. The EPA has control of that fish pond in your backyard. Really? Really? What business is it of a bureaucrat in some agency determining what light bulb I buy from the grocery store? whether it's an incandescent or an LED. It's none of their damn business. I'm making the purchase. What business is the government to tell me what type of toilet I could have and how much water it can flush? No, those regulations, I'm sorry, that's not one of the 13 enumerated powers of Congress, and it should not be a power that a bureaucrat has in a government agency. Get the government regulations off our backs. Thank you.
That's right.
Number 3, and this is where the left will really hate us. End the American border crisis, which is what we've been talking about for most of this show, the border crisis, by thoroughly enforcing existing immigration laws. Heaven forbid they actually enforce the current laws out there. Heaven forbid that. Aggressively construct the wall on our southern border. But I have to say, we may need to look at the northern border also, because our border between Canada and the United States in many places does not even exist. I mean, you can walk across your property and be in Canada. So we need to look at securing all border entrances, including airports and maritime ports. Identifying and rejecting fraudulent asylum claims. I'm sorry. Simply because you live in a poor country, an economic reason is not a reason for asylum. If you have the president of your country looking to behead you because you are a political enemy of theirs, that's a reason for asylum. If there's a major civil war and you're sitting on the wrong side of the civil war and your family is going to be exterminated, that's a reason to seek asylum, but not because you're living in a poor country. I'm sorry, that's not a reason. There's a legal way in which to enter the United States if that's your problem, but you can still enter legally if you are from an impoverished country. We're not going to turn you away, but you have to show us a reason why you should be here. Restoring the Remain in Mexico policy for people waiting asylum claims. And Mexico said already that they would do that until this administration took over. And then all of a sudden Mexico said, oh, well, if you got a weak administration, then we're going to do whatever the hell we want anyway. Arresting, detaining, and removing immigration violators anywhere in the United States. And in this, there should be a partnership between the federal agencies, such as ICE and Border Patrol, and local law enforcement.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. Why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save